So don't anybody get too. There we go. All right. Say hi to YouTube because we're going to be back there. Sharing sound. Done. Back on in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Duder Podcast. When we clicked out of that last segment, I told the Beetettes that I was going to go take my ham off the smoker, and Recty said, "Is that code?" No, it's not code. I was gone all weekend. I got to get some food made. I like to smoke fine meats and cheeses, so. We're back, Duder Podcast, with the Catching Up With series. First time we're doing this, and we are proud to be joined by current Lima Shawnee head coach and former Hicksville head coach, Jerry Cooper. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, Rob, it's nice to be on here. It's been a long time since Hicksville. People forget that I was the head coach at Hicksville from 90 through 92. So that's been 30 years ago.
Well, we've got a little surprise for you here because I've also brought in one of your former players from your first year. And I didn't know this until the other day, but he was your first quarterback. And let's give a warm Duder welcome to Jamie Smooth Evans.
Jamie, it's nice to see you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on, Coop. It's great to see you again, man. He introduced me as your first quarterback, but that was only for 5 games until we figured out that I was the worst quarterback in the Tri-County area. And we had to get, we found out that, to run a play, being at run or pass, you had to get the snap. And, one of the first questions that I couldn't wait to ask you, and I talked to Rob about this prior to, him having me and asking me come on here is, hey, first of all, can you run the shotgun out or run the option out of the shotgun? And why didn't we do that?
You know what? And if I had known now, back then what I know now, we'd have been in the gun. We'd have snapped you the ball every time, and we'd have never had to take the snap. Because I remember how nervous you were under center to try to get out. And Bob, this is the honest truth. He was sprinting to get out from under center. Because and he forgot that you had to take the ball with you every time.
Yeah.
Is that why you had because you had the center snapping the ball a different way? Elvis, you were a center. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
How we took the snap, we held our hands in a diamond shape.
Yeah, it was an upside down snap.
Yeah, we always had those guys flip the ball, and we felt like if you got the ball a little higher and a little farther out, you could get out from under center quicker. And the old school wing T guys, you get way up underneath and you're set way underneath that. But I was kind of we wanted to throw the ball and we wanted that quarterback to be able to sprint. So we went a little bit higher snap, and we're still doing that to this day. And I can tell you, it can be done. And we have a lot of efficiency. Just it was kind of new for those guys and a lot different than what they've been coached to do in the past.
Yeah, and not only that, Coach, but as far as I went, I was used to taking handoffs, not receiving snaps. So it was a whole new ball game. It was a whole new ball game to you coming into a new school, and totally, it was a whole new playbook coming in. Running the option at Hicksville, and so it was new. And I think, the couple years after, my senior year, I was gone, that it worked out. And you have, we fought some injuries that year, and otherwise I think we could have really pulled it off without, with keeping me at quarterback. But it was fun, and it ended up working out. Kelby did it well. He grew up in snaps. That was where he was supposed to be. And once we got the people in the right positions, and and saw what we had going on with all the injuries and everything and made some adjustments, it ended up working out. And that's when we started winning ball games. But if it wasn't for those injuries, who knows? We could have picked up a couple more W's in that column.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Jamie, you're exactly right. That first year was a transition year for us. Kelby was a sophomore that first year, and he wasn't ready to play varsity quarterback. But as the season wore on, he got more and more comfortable. We moved him into that quarterback spot, and he had a couple of pretty productive years at quarterback for us. But he wasn't quite ready as a sophomore. Couldn't have weighed a $140, and Kelby, he wasn't the most athletic guy in the world, but he played awfully good quarterback for us the next 2 years. And you guys kind of laid the foundation, and people forget that we came off of that first year and we won the Green Meadows Conference Championship back-to-back years in there and played some pretty good football in that stretch. And we beat Ayersville for the first time in a long time. We beat Kenora one of the 2 years in there, and those were the 3 best teams in the league.
Yep.
Elvis is trying to show you guys he still has his 92 GMC Champs t-shirt.
I see it.
The question is, can he still wear it? Can he fit in it?
It's on me, Coach.
Oh, there you go.
So, Coach, take us back. So, take us back to the fall of 1990 what brought you to Hicksville?
Well, to be honest with you, I had been the head coach at Waynesfield Goshen, which was a small school, and my real passion was to do both. I'd always been a football and track coach, and I wanted to find a small community where I could do both football and track. And Hicksville had a really impressive, they just put in the new track, and they had the Rotary building down there that was neat, and I wanted to do both those. And Waynesfield had a literally a stone track. So we'd come off a really good playoff game, and I was trying to find that small community to settle into, and Hicksville just seemed like a really good fit.
Go ahead, Elvis.
Hey, Coach, I got one question for you, then I got to get out of here. Jerry Cooper, 30 plus years head coach. What advice did you give to Jerry Cooper, first or second year head coach?
Oh, I guess I mellowed as we got older. Hey, I was pretty harsh with some of our players for a long period of time. And, not that toughness doesn't help make you a better thing, but I think there's actually a more positive, a kinder, gentler head coach now. And maybe that's because the way the game has been coached and the way the people require you to coach it has changed a lot. And I would say, man, if I could go back and do some of those things different, I try to be a little bit more player friendly and a little bit more receptive to work, and not quite as much as a I guess for me myself be like a wagon train driver. I was always driving the wagon train, trying to grind those guys into doing everything exactly the way I wanted to get it done.
So, Elvis, you're leaving?
Yes, I'll be right back. Give me about
Farfignugan. He forgot to use the code word.
He didn't use the code word.
I'll tell you, Jamie, some things never change in Hicksville, and that's one of them. Elvis is still Elvis. He'll always be Elvis.
Hey, Coop, I don't know. How long had I know you came from Waynesfield, but how long had you been coaching football before you came to Hicksville?
Hey, Jamie, I started, my first head coaching job was 1984, and I went to Lucas High School, and I was just there 1 year, and then I had a chance to go to Kenyon.
Oh boy.
And so I went to Kenyon College for 3 years, and then Waynesfield too. So I've been a head coach continuously since 1988.
Okay.
And I realized that you weren't too old in 1988. What were you, 15 or 14? But I've been a head coach continuously every season since 1988. And prior to that, I had that 1 year of high school coaching in 1984.
Gotcha.
Well, folks, it seems as though we have somebody new in Elvis's chair. Another surprise guest is here. Iron Mike Bailey. Welcome to the Duder Podcast, Uncle Mike.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks.
Hey, Coop, how you been, bud?
Mike, how are you? Hey,
I'm
Mike,
good.
it's interesting because just on Friday, I talked to both Seiler and Turnbull, and I tell
Oh, you
people
did?
all the time, that was the best part of Hicksville is we had 3 coaches that coached for us whose kids played on the team. And I felt like that just made those coaches that much more invested in what we we're doing. And those guys were all, dyed in the wool Hicksville community people. And that's what made it fun for me. I got to know the people in the community and the kids and really got taken in by the coaches as well as the players.
Oh, we really enjoyed having you all the time, Coop. It was just, I learned so much from 3 years of being, or was it, oh yeah, 2 or 3 years? 3
Yeah, I
years?
was there 3.
3. But I learned so much just, like what, I come out of junior high coaching for several years and then got with you and it was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed it. I'd say I learned a lot from you and I don't know how much you guys have went over that I just got sat down here, but just congratulations on your big win Thursday night and hope you get a whole bunch more.
Yeah, to be honest with you, that's always a hard thing is when you play against those teams that you've coached at before.
Oh, I bet.
When I was at Columbus Grove, we played Hicksville a couple times, 2 or 3 times, and in the playoffs. And then after I left Columbus Grove and went to Lima Central Catholic, we played Grove every year and quite a few times. And now that I'm at Lima Shawnee, we're playing Lima Central Catholic. Now we played them, so that's always kind of a tough thing. But in coaching, those kids respond, and it's all about trying to give the kids as positive experience in that coaching. And I always say that the thing that I've tried to do my whole coaching career, and I really believe in this philosophy is, your job as a head coach, you have a whole bunch of kids in your locker room. And my job is to take all those guys in the locker room, and I call them men, take all the men in your locker room and teach them how to be good football players. Then the flip side of that, maybe more, is to take all those football players in your locker room and try to teach those guys how to be good young men. And that's kind of been my coaching philosophy for all of the 37 or 38 years that I've been coaching.
I think the last time I remember talking to you was maybe down in Indianapolis at a coach's clinic down there. I think you were off in the corner signing autographs.
Yeah.
Not real sure, but no, I think that was the last time I remember talking to you. It was down in Indy.
Well, Mike, I got on that Glacier Clinic circuit, and for about 5 years, we had a lot of success at Columbus Grove. And then we had even more success at Lima Central Catholic, or just about as much. So there was a 10-year stretch. And, if you go back prior to that, the last 3 or 4 years I was at Bath, I had 10 straight teams win 10 or more games, which is pretty amazing. And
yeah, that's for sure.
all of those, and because of the success we had, those guys wanted to hear what we had to say, especially about the offensive stuff. And I got on that Glacier Clinic circuit. Every other weekend, we're in Chicago one weekend and then Indianapolis or Cincinnati or Cleveland or Pittsburgh. And I learned a ton being around those coaches. And what I learned was there are a lot of great coaches around the country. And you don't have to know everything. You just got to be smart enough to listen to the guys that do. And we stole a bunch of things from guys that, came from all over the place. And I think I'm a way better coach now than I was back in 1990. The head coach at Hicksville.
Yeah, that's how those clinics always go. Even if you only take one thing home with you, usually it's always a good thing, and it just always goes that way for you. Works out great.
Yeah, and we've had some awfully good quarterbacks. We had the kid that played for us at Lima Central Catholic, O'Connor, that went and played at Michigan State. But I want to tell you, he wasn't as good athlete as Jamie Evans.
Come on, man.
At Hicksville. And to be honest, if I knew if I knew then what I know now, we would have ran a completely different style offense, and Jamie would have been a dynamic, shotgun quarterback. And we just didn't, we were kind of set in what we're doing.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things you do is you evolve over time. And now, shoot, Jamie, if I was the head coach at Hicksville now and you were playing quarterback, we'd be in that pistol shotgun. You'd be zone reading, and you'd be running and throwing for 1,000,000 yards.
It just wasn't that popular back then. I mean, that's like you said, that's the change of times. I mean, the evolution of football, so to speak.
Yeah,
Then the
and-
world would have never known Kelby Seiler.
man,
That's right.
No offense,
Hey.
Kel.
Squall did a great job, man. He came in there, like Coop said, as a sophomore, and I mean, he did the job and he did it well.
I was telling somebody else this story the other day. I knew Kelby was going to be okay when he was a sophomore and we were scrimmaging Delphus St. John's. And, Delphus St. John's is just at the start of their, 56 games in a row winning streak, and they're really good. They got a big guy that played tackle at Toledo, a kid named Colin Westrick.
Colin Westrick, yeah.
About 6'6", about 260. And he comes down there almost untouched. And we're running the option. He takes one step, pitches the ball, and this Westrick, it just plants him. And I mean, Kelby couldn't have weighed $140. He gets up, his helmet sideways. He gets up, and you could see the look in his eyes like, whoa, but I can do this. I remember him coming back to the huddle. He came back, but he stood in there and showed a lot of courage. And I knew then that Kelby, even though he didn't have a ton of, natural athleticism, would be a really good quarterback because he was smart enough and tough enough and wanted to do the job.
So you did a good job of teaching them too, Coop. You really got him going off on the right foot. Things just went off for him. You did a good job with him.
Mike, we had some really good people around him. Hey, we had two nice big tight ends. Homer Zartman played tight end, and Jamie Shaw played some tight end. Running back was a big money, and Wonderly was a good back for us. So there were a lot of moving parts, and Ruoff was a good back, and we had lots of good guys. Haver was a good back. So we had a lot of kids that were pretty good football players. And then you throw in those linemen, Turnbull and Edwards and Hollinger and all the guys, and Neidhart, all those other guys that played on the line. We had good linemen. We had good backs, receivers, and those guys tried to do what the head coach was getting them to do. And by that second year, we were a pretty good football team. And I think we played pretty solid football for really 2.5 seasons of the 3 years that I was there.
Well, hey, Coop, now, do you have a son that's still playing?
I'll tell you what, he's actually graduated. Here's a funny story, Mike.
Okay.
He went to Lima Central Catholic up through 8th grade, and then I retired from teaching in Ohio. So we went to Tennessee, and we lived in Tennessee for 4 years. So Tyler played all 4 of his years in Tennessee at a school called Seymour High School in Tennessee.
Okay.
Then when we come back, he's ready to go to college. He figures out how he can take advantage of a thing called Tennessee Promise. The state of Tennessee promises every graduating senior that they will pay for 2 years of college or, some kind of vocational training if you do that training in the state. So Tyler, we moved back to Ohio. He takes classes through Pellissippi State, which is a branch in Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's taking classes there. So he actually coaches for me. He coached for me for the first 2 years I was at Shawnee. And then he transferred all his stuff back to the University of Cincinnati. So Tyler's going to be a senior at University of Cincinnati. He coached 2 years for me. And then this spring he coached at Mount St. Joe.
Nice.
With those guys. Yeah. And that was funny. He's just sending out an application out there. He was looking for an internship. And despite the fact that those guys knew Kelby, they still took him at Mount St. Joe.
Yeah.
The guy that used to be the head coach was Kelby's position coach, a guy named Rod Huber. And so those guys all know Kelby, and he's hung out around there. But they played their football season in the spring. So Tyler coached last fall, his 3rd year. He coached with me in the fall. And then he coached another year in the spring at Mount St. Joe because the Division IIIs didn't play in the fall because of COVID. So they played football in the spring.
Well, hey, I'm gonna give the headset back to my son and let the guys take care of this, and my daughter take care of this that are good at it. And it's good seeing you, Coop. And I appreciate them letting me come on here and saying hey to you. And good luck the rest of the season. I hope you can kick some butt, get some work done. Take care of yourself.
And to be honest with you, Mike, the best part of Hicksville, from my perspective, we had great players, and I love the relationship we built with the players. But you and Blue Boy and Jim Turnbull and Jim Seiler and, Volkert and Bauer, the guys that coached for us, but those guys were all good guys and invested in the program. And it was really, truly a tight-knit community. I'm just happy to have been a part of it, got to know all you guys, and got a chance to coach the kids from your community.
Okay, Jerry, take care, bud.
Thanks.
Wow, that was a little surprise Elvis threw at us there. Hell, I didn't even know that was going to happen.
Yeah. Mike coached those linebackers for us. He did a great job when I was the head football coach there. You know, like we said, all those guys were dyed-in-the-wool Hicksville community guys. And Seiler coordinated the defense, and Blue helped coach the secondary. And, you know, Turnbull helped with the defensive line. And then Seiler coordinated the defense. And so we had all those guys were Hicksville community guys and did a great job coaching for it.
Yeah, that's got to be kind of nice because most of those guys were already there when you came. So you really didn't have to build a staff.
No, those guys that coached for Mike Robinson. Mike did a great job, was a really sound, solid football coach, and he had done a great job. And those guys had a lot of good football ideas. And the other part was they were willing to be receptive to doing whatever the head coach wanted to do. And those guys bought in and did a great job for it.
Elvis, I thought you were going to the restroom. We all did.
I did.
That was a nice little head fake you threw.
I had to trick everybody.
And it's Coach, it's funny you mentioned Blue Boy. Actually, I was just confirming with him. He'll be our guest next week. I referred to him as the asshole that replaced you. Everybody just knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. When I was at Hicksville, Dave was the athletic director, and I was the head football coach. Well, he was assistant football coach for me. So the first day I told him, hey, dude, we got to get to this understanding. I won't fire you off my football staff. You can't fire me as the head coach. I said, no, that don't work that way, because if I fire you as the head coach, then I don't have to worry about getting fired as football coach.
Coop, I kind of look at you as one of the early pioneers of building a culture and building the program itself. I remember when you came, I was just in junior high, so I just remember the organization that you had. I remember coming out for calisthenics. We came out in the shape of an H.
Well, there are lots of innovative things like that we tried to do.
And the Make Something Happen t-shirts.
And
you know,
go ahead, Mike or Rob. I mean,
that's all right. They get us confused all the time.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
But
No,
no,
they
they don't.
Oh, they don't.
Between the t-shirts and the one thing I did remember that I found really interesting is as we were doing our calisthenics pregame, we had to call out the cadence.
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying ready, go. We had to actually call it the cadence. Just some things I just remembered.
Yeah, things that you know you're going to use all the time. You might as well incorporate those things in your warm up. You know, back then we were probably doing leg lifts and push-ups and set-ups and stuff in our warm up. Now we do, you know, active stretching and all this other stuff. But one of the things that just reminded me of a story that something that happened at Hicksville. Jamie will probably remember this. There was a great big ass rock over by the.
I was going to bring this up, Coop.
By the pool, and for one reason, whatever happened,
it was the 175th time that I dropped the snap. Yeah. And I punted the football and said a cuss word because I was so frustrated. And you said, hey, Smooth, go over there and push that rock over. And I looked at you like you were a crazy man. And I said, what? You go over there and push that rock over. And I once again looked at you and said, what? And you go, just go over and lean on that damn rock, will you?
and you know,
go ahead with the story, but it was so motivational. It was genius, actually. And even my brother, who's 2 years older, I told him that story, and he's like, dude, that is genius, man. I like the guy, and I've never met him.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, we had that big rock, and we were not all on the same page and working together. And so, you know, we sent Jamie over there after he fumbled to try to tip that rock over that weighed 5 tons, whatever. So he goes over there and is standing against the rock. Well, then I sent the rest of the seniors over there and told those guys to push on the rock. Well, pretty soon the whole team came over there. Well, when all 55 guys got pushing on that rock, we're actually tipping that rock around. And the moral of the story is, you know, individually, or in small group, the one senior can't do it by himself. Even the senior class can't do it by themselves, or the offense or the defense. But if all 55 guys get pushing in the same direction, it's kind of amazing the amount of work and the amount of energy and things that you can get done. And so the whole team got over there and we got to, basically rocking that rock back and forth. And I honestly think had I let them go far enough, they might have been able to tip that rock over because all 58 guys were on it. And that kind of brought us together because those guys understood that individually, I don't stand a chance versus the rock. And in small group, I don't stand a chance. But if we all 55 get on the same page doing the same thing, then we got a chance. And that was the moral of the story.
Very cool. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Hey,
Yep.
Coach, I got a question for you. Let's fast forward a few years. 2003, you're at Columbus Grove and your rematch versus Hicksville. What was going through your brain, your mind, and all that before? I know you kicked our butt and won the state championship, but what were you thinking about pregame?
And to be honest with you, it was nice to see all the guys. And I'm thinking, because I know we were a good football team. In 2003, we were good. It's lucky for you guys we didn't play in 2002 because the 2002 team might have been the best team I ever coached. And the only reason that team didn't win the state title, our starting quarterback blew his knee in a game down at Troy Christian. And if the 2002 would have played the 2003 team, they would have beat them by 2 or 3 touchdowns. And the 2003 team is the team that won the state championship. So, but it was nice to see all those guys and get on the field with those guys. I had a really good feeling that we were going to win that game because we were a pretty good football team. But at the same time, you certainly don't want to, make the guys that you have so much respect for look bad in any way. So you're just trying to get through that game and play as good a playoff football as we could.
That and you broke our quarterback's neck on like the third play of the game.
Yeah, and we ran a double.
Yeah.
Scored a touchdown right before half and made it 28 or 35 to whatever at halftime. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd have just ran.
That's all right.
That looked like it's being great. Hey, but I don't forget things that come around too. I also remember a year later, after we won the state title, hey, Hicksville beat us over at Defiance in a playoff game. And those guys made it to the state semis, and they were a good football team. So,
Yeah.
high school football, it's challenging, but it's also very humbling. And those kids at Hicksville, give them a lot of credit. They came back the next year after we had kicked their butt and said, we're not intimidated by those guys. We're going to go right after them. And they beat us. In fact, that was the last game I coached at Columbus Grove, was a loss to Hicksville at Defiance High School.
Really?
I got to tell this story, Elvis. We had been in the last 4 years that I was at Hicksville, we went 12-2, 13-1, 15-0, and then 10-2. We lost a regular season game the last week of the season, that 10-2 team. And then we lost to Hicksville in the second round of the playoffs. We beat Ayersville in the first round, lost to Hicksville. And Mag had a slightly stretched Achilles tendon. So he was about 75 or 80%. We lost that game. And the people at Hicksville, people at Columbus Grove, after all those wins that we had, they were barking at our kids and giving our kids a hard time because we lost one game. And I remember telling our coaches in the locker room, we have created an absolute monster at Columbus Grove. I don't know whether I'm going to stay around long enough for them to yell and scream at our kids, because our kids have done everything we asked them to do. It worked out at the end of that season. I got the head coach's name.
Well, we've got a few minutes here before we have to take a break. But Teak, you've been pretty quiet over there. You want to ask Coach what his favorite college or NFL team is?
Hey, Coach Cooper. I don't know if you remember me. I was a little shorter and blonder then, but Yeah, I can't think of a question right now, and I'm afraid we don't have enough time.
I got one, Rob.
Go ahead, Steve.
Coach, you coached for a long time, and I'm assuming a lot of great players. Who is the most talented player that you've ever had?
There's been a lot of talented players. I'll tell you the kid that I want to mention first is there were two kids that played for us that were great teammates. And the one of those was Blaine May, the kid that, was the tailback in the state championship team. And the thing that I remember the most about him was he never had anything negative to say to anyone on the team. He was always positive and he rushed for 1,000,000 yards. In fact, he scored 99 high school career touchdowns. He needed one more touchdown. He actually fumbled in the game against Hicksville. Would have given him this 100 touchdown. And don't let you. I remind him of that every once in a while. He always talks to me, "Hey, coach, you should give me the ball more. I scored 100 touchdowns." I said, "No, if you hadn't fumbled against Hicksville, you'd have had 100 and we'd have won the game." But he was such a great teammate, and it had so many positive things to say about his lineman. And then Tyler O'Connor, the kid that played quarterback for Central Catholic. O'Connor was already committed to Michigan State, a senior quarterback. And I would tell the freshmen to pick up all the footballs and the equipment stuff. And O'Connor would start running and sprinting as a senior, picking up footballs and picking up bags and rallying those guys up to follow him. And you don't lead by telling people to do things. You lead by showing them what to do. And he was so great at that. And so being a great teammate and being the kind of person that shows the younger players what to do, those are things that put you at the top of the list in my mind. And then the third one is the kid that played quarterback for me the very first year I coached was a kid named Andy Booth, who was an All-Ohio football player and All-Ohio basketball. Scored 30 points a game in basketball and was by far our best football player and was an All-Ohio football player. In fact, an interesting story about Andy, he went to Ohio State on a football visit, wrote down all the athletic things that he did, and before he left that day, Ohio State University offered him a swimming scholarship because he was about 6'5", big tall kid. And they literally looked at the time he wrote down in the 50 freestyle, put him in the pool, timed him. Before he left, said, "I don't think you're good enough to play football at Ohio State, but we'll offer you a swim scholarship on the spot." And so those three guys come to the top of the list in my mind as guys that doing some of the things that make you a good football program. And Andy had such a great will to win, and all the kids just rallied around him. He found a way to get it done.
Wow. Well, hey, let's take a little break here. We've only got about 3 minutes before we've got a break, but let's go ahead and take a break. We'll come back with some more from Coach, and maybe Elvis has got more surprised visitors up his sleeve. You never know about him. Yeah, come on back. You're listening to the Duder Podcast.